Hello, everybody. This is our winter-spring flood outlook from the National Weather Service in Burlington. This outlook period covers the dates from January 22nd to February 4th of 2026. So this is a two-week outlook. As a reminder, we issue these outlooks bi-weekly or every other week in the winter from January through late March, sometimes early April. So the next iteration of this will come out on February 5th. So let's go ahead. This is kind of a busy slide, so I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on this second slide here, and then we'll move through some of the data to talk to you about. So from an overview perspective, the open water and ice jam flood potential is below normal for the entire area for the next 2 weeks, as shown by the map on the right here. Generally expecting a seasonally cold and generally drier than normal mid-weather pattern during the period, with limited chances of heavy rainfall or thawing conditions. Now, we will have probably some accumulating moderate snowfall coming up here Sunday night, probably Monday morning here. This is talking about the period of late January here, but by the time you see this video, that will have been passed. The snow cover and snow water content are expected to remain steady state or show slow increases across the area, but no excessive precipitation is expected. And this has largely been the case so far this winter. The mean snow depths and the snow water equivalents are generally near normal or even somewhat below normal, except in some high elevation spots of the Adirondacks and the far northern Green Mountains. The river ice coverage will remain steady state or slowly build over the next 2 weeks, given the expected colder weather pattern. And with most rivers now partially to fully ice covered, this makes sense. There are three small ice jams present, which I will cover here in a minute, but none of those pose a significant flooding risk at this point, given the limiting thawing. So from the hazard and impact perspective, moving down here on the left, no flood impacts are expected over the next 2 weeks. The longer term trends beyond early February always become uncertain when you're talking beyond 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. So you can never make a definitive judgment at that point. All it takes is one big heavy rainfall event, for example, in March. And if we lose all the snow in one night, that's going to cause problems. We can't predict that at these time ranges. So we generally confine these outlooks to a 2 week period. So from the outlook challenges standpoint, we lie in a cold winter weather pattern through the next 2 weeks, with high pressure mainly dominating. At this time, no highly impacted systems that could produce a significant thaw or large river rises are expected, and precipitation should mainly fall in the form of light to moderate snows or intermittent snow showers. Some of the information at the bottom here, I'm not going to cover all of that, but really that kind of highlights and supports some of the material I've been giving you so far. Here's our snowpack data for January the 21st. I'm recording this on the 22nd, so you're receiving this a little later. So obviously this could be changing, but this is what we have now. The snow depths are generally 1 to 8 inches in the larger valleys. We're talking Connecticut River Valley, Champlain Valley, St. Lawrence Valley. The mid-terrain elevations of the greens, mainly between 1,000 and 2,500 feet, 8 to 28 inches, and 3 feet plus in the higher terrain and summits. So these are near normal depths in the valleys and near to above normal in some of the higher terrain, especially the far northern greens. And the snow water equivalents kind of match those snow depths. So less than 2 inches of snow water in the valleys, about 2 to 6 at mid elevations. Again, those higher totals in the far northern greens, up toward Jay Peak, some of those far northern mountains. And the higher terrain, 3 to 7 inches plus of liquid. As mentioned earlier, the river ice coverage, the potential for any ice jam flooding is below normal over the next 2 weeks due to persistent cold. A few ice jams are present, but none of those currently pose a threat. The northern rivers, which we survey, and that's the Winooski, the Lamoille, the Missisquoi, and the Passumpsic, those are showing a mix of partially open to fully covered ice channels. Where solid ice coverage exists, thicknesses are estimated between 3 and 8 inches. Again, not to belittle a point, but no large-scale thawing or heavy rainfall events are expected in the next 2 weeks as we remain in a cold winter weather pattern. So we really don't have a lot of concern for ice jams at this point. We're kind of in the midwinter cold stretch here. Here's a shot from earlier in the month showing the river ice conditions in Swanton, Vermont, which shows solid sheet ice covering the majority of the channel there. As I mentioned, we have 3 active, at least known ice jams. Those are annotated by little pins there on the map. There are 2 in the Passumpsic. There's one at Lindenville up by Lily Pond Road. Uh, these are small jams, by the way. There's another one down at the confluence of the Moose River and the Passumpsic, and there's another one at East George on the Lamoille. Now, that last one never, hardly ever poses a problem. Sometimes it can flood Arrowhead Mountain Lake Road, but generally that's not a problem. The two Passumpsic jams, again, water's finding a way around them right now, but it'll be something to keep an eye on when we go into the breakup season if those are still around. As a reminder, I do river ice surveys biweekly or every other week in the winter up here for these northern rivers, so I'll have some updates on that in our flood outlooks going forward through the winter to see if those have changed or have gone away or what have you. Here's the river ice coverage on the Passumpsic and the legend on the left, yellow and red, partially to closed channels in your ice jam locations. You can see the two ice jams that I just spoke about there. Partially open channel kind of north of Lindenville as you get up toward Burke. The flow is, the river's more steep up there on the East Branch, and the flow tends to remain at least partially open. It's hard to get fully closed up there. But mainly from Linden all the way down through St. Johnsbury Center, St. Johnsbury, and southward, it's mainly closed. Here's the Lamoille. It's more of a mix of open and cold and closed channels. Again, these colors are approximate based off of my observations. They're not exact, so take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But you can see there's closed areas and open areas, and the only jam way down there by Arrowhead Mountain Lake. So no jams noted on the Lamoille at this time, which is a good thing. And then finally, the Missisquoi. I haven't got out to the Winooski yet. It's the least ice covered. The Missisquoi's got the largest coverage of ice. Not surprising. It's a shallower river in general, and it's the most furtherly north. There are some open stretches around East Highgate and between kind of that Sheldon area and Enosburg, and another little open stretch up by East Berkshire at the 114 bridge crossing. But generally, it's largely ice covered. But in doing the observations up there, all the way up to Richford, 10 days ago or so, I did not notice any ice jams. So that's another good thing to consider. Here's our current stream flow as of the start of the third week in January across the area. Most of the stream flows are near normal. There's a couple below normal ones in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont where some of the longer term drought does persist. The rest of them are near normal, and the grayed out areas are the ones that are more ice affected. And when we get those conditions, the river gauges often report erroneous stream flows. So the USGS blots those out and does not report percentage of normals for those data plots. So no large concerns there. Here is our groundwater conditions. This is not surprising as we get into deep winter. Most of our water is locked up in the snowpack. So the groundwater, the runoff, the infiltration into the ground by water is more limited, and the deeper groundwater tends to go down. So you tend to get deteriorating conditions, and that's not uncommon here. We are pulling out of a long-term drought, so it is something to keep in mind as we go into the spring to watch precipitation patterns and can we get a good runoff event to recharge the soil moisture layers. Those topmost layers, within the top foot or two of the ground to help agriculture, and eventually that will infiltrate down and to help the wells. If we don't get a lot of precip going forward through the winter, then it could be a problem again. So it's not uncommon to see this. It's just something to monitor going forward. And you can see a mix of conditions there. And they're not all the same. I should mention that, wells, depending on the depth and the type of geological strata they're dug in, whether it's granite or some type of different, makeup of bedrock, can affect these readings. Here's our latest Lake Champlain data overview. We've pulled right back to normal over the last 6 weeks to 2 months. So this is the latest readings that we had. Actually, this was a day or two ago. This is not the 19th. I think it was the 21st. But you can see the current level is marked by the red bar there, as opposed to what the normal levels are by the purple line, and we're smack dab at normal. So, of course, as always, future levels on the lake are heavily reliant on future precipitation and snowmelt, right? But in the absence of a lot of heavy precipitation and runoff events, I don't really have any concerns going forward. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, no long-term really predictions that we have a flood threat on the lake. Here are our 8 to 14 day outlooks. As I mentioned earlier, we're going into quite a cold period over the next 2 weeks through the end of January into early February. And that map is shown on the left there. That was the latest I could get my hands on from the 19th. Showing a large, pretty pronounced signature of a western U.S. ridge with above normal precipitation and a big kind of upper level trough in the east with colder than normal temperatures coming down from Canada. And when we typically get these colder than normal air masses, it's not surprising. They're kind of linked. We have a drier than normal weather pattern. So the overall precipitation outlook through early February is below normal for the Northeast in general. And that makes sense from a weather standpoint. Here's our monthly temperature outlook for February. This was last one was issued on the 15th. Another one will come out on the last day of the month. Our month as a whole, they're looking at equal chances of above or below normal temperatures, as shown on the left. And from the precipitation patterns, leaning a little bit above normal, but not a strong signature there. And you can see the percentiles at the bottom if you need to take a look at this a little longer and pause the video. But no screaming signals that jump out to me from the February standpoint, as opposed to that prior signature of the next 2 weeks showing the below normal temperatures and drier than normal weather for the last 2 weeks in January. So that's all I have right now. Again, as a reminder, we issue these every 2 weeks. The next one will come out via email on February 5th. So it's time sensitive, right? So to use it over the next 2 weeks, and after the 4th or whatever of February, just wait for the next one that's going to come out on the 5th. And we'll have some updated conditions and my thoughts on the flood threat going forward from there. And we'll have some follow up briefings with VEM to give to you at that point. You're always free to call our unlisted numbers there listed on the right, through our email account there listed, or through our Facebook page. But I would recommend the phone number or the email address is probably the easiest way to do it. And feel free to ask questions, and they will, if they can't answer them themselves, because we have a lot of seasoned meteorologists here, they can point that question to me, and I will get back with you. So that's all I have right now. Thank you for your time, and let's hope for a quiet winter pattern with not a lot of flooding.